Last summer, I got an opportunity that many filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, dream about, to work on the set of a major, big-budget feature film, right in the middle of New York City. It was a gigantic operation. There were hundreds of crew members, the city streets were closed down, cameras on cranes were swinging around, and no, I'm not the next Spider-Man. With my background in filmmaking and also sustainability, my role was far more glamorous as an environmental production assistant. And with this lens, I began to look at the set slightly differently. Diesel generators were humming next to solar-powered trailers. Perfectly good food was getting thrown away at the end of every meal. Hundreds of plastic water bottles were strewn across the set, and despite the sweltering summer heat, everyone around me was wearing winter coats because the air conditioning was set to Arctic levels. And there I was with my entire arm inside a clearly labeled recycling bin, pulling out someone's half-eaten lunch and putting it into the neighboring compost bin. And I remember staring into this pile of compost as the bag slowly leaked onto my foot, and looking around the set and thinking, there has to be a better way of doing this. When I got home, I dived headfirst into research. I read every article I could find on the topic of sustainability within the film and TV industry. I went to industry events and interviewed over 30 industry professionals, from CEOs to production assistants, to better understand the scale of the problem and the possibilities for change. What I found is staggering. Film and TV industry is known for its creativity, its cultural influence, and its innovation, but it's also hiding an inconvenient truth, that the environmental cost of bringing these stories to life is monumental. The industry is hugely complex and full of contradictions, but there is also huge potential for change. Hollywood has the power to not only transform its own practices, but uniquely the power to change its audience's behaviors by championing climate storytelling and normalizing sustainability on screen. So, allow me to take you on a journey behind the scenes of this famously mysterious industry. I'll show you the impact that it has, the solutions within its grasp, and most importantly, why any of this matters to you, whether or not you've ever stepped foot on a movie set. But before I do that, I'm going to be mentioning this word a lot over the next 10 minutes or so. Sustainability. Meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It is equally about us as much as it is about the environment and the economy. It's a whole lot more than just carbon dioxide. But let's talk about CO2 for just a minute. This is what 1 ton of CO2 looks like. Each ton emitted, regardless of location, is responsible for 3 square meters of melting summer Arctic sea ice. On an average day of production, like the one I was on in New York City, 33 metric tons of CO2 are released. That's 3 times the annual emissions of you or me or Spider-Man. Every day. Over the course of production, that's over 3,000 tons of CO2. Or 1.5 football fields of lost ice. And that's just the carbon. Add to that 84,000 plastic water bottles, all of that material and food waste, the data-intensive editing process, flying everybody out to the media tours and the premieres. It adds up to a lot. Travel is actually responsible for over half of the emissions on almost every production. It's typical for shows to fly out their stars and executives first class to exotic locations around the world in the pursuit of spectacle and authenticity. But this comes at the cost of sustainability. The emissions from these flights alone are responsible for more carbon than the entire footprint of shows shot domestically. There's even one actor who likes to fly their own car out to wherever they're shooting in the world so he can cameo in the background. Sets the size of small towns are constructed, filmed, and thrown away, often after single scenes. And fragile ecosystems can be destroyed in the process, such as in Namibia during the filming of Mad Max Fury Road, a film, ironically, set in a post-environmental collapse world. Digital effects can reduce some of this material waste, but with ever-increasing file sizes and the rise of artificial intelligence, the power demand of the cloud, which in reality is a little less fluffy, is now responsible for 3% of global emissions, equal to that of the entire aviation industry, and it's growing exponentially. Change is possible, though. The creativity that drives Hollywood storytelling can also fuel innovation for sustainability, which all industries can take inspiration from. Here are 5 of my favorite solutions. Circular thinking by crew on the set of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 reduced landfill waste by recycling 50 tons of materials. They reused props and costumes from other films. They donated thousands of meals. And by conserving resources, they also saved the production $400,000. Studios like Belgium's AED have invested in solar panels, electric vehicle chargers, and rainwater harvesting into their facilities, which pay for themselves over time. Vancouver has local incentives to encourage the elimination of diesel generators on set. Instead, productions can plug directly into the city's grid, or if out on location, use mobile battery packs, cutting emissions and improving air quality. New technology like 360-degree LED screens can create realistic virtual backgrounds for shows like The Mandalorian, which eliminate the need for travel and constructing physical single-use sets and traipsing across fragile ecosystems. However, all of this technology is full of rare earth minerals and requires a ton of electricity, which has to come from a renewable source to make any meaningful difference. Productions can hire trained sustainability professionals to oversee the set, track the data, and provide advice. They are most effective if brought in at least 12 weeks out from pressing the record button on a major blockbuster. Otherwise, decisions are already locked in and their impact is limited. And about a year ago, I would have added offsetting to this list. This is the practice of purchasing a carbon credit from a company who does things like plant trees on your behalf over here to offset and absorb the emissions that you're emitting over here. About a year ago, this practice was mandatory for productions seeking environmental certification, but this practice was recently overturned as a policy. How come? Well, offsetting is intangible, and at about £10 per ton of CO2 removed, it was just simply too cheap. It led to productions going about business as usual and just paying small offsetting fees, as opposed to stopping the emissions from occurring in the first place by investing in their own green infrastructure. Doing this is called insetting, and it is now the recommendation for anyone seeking green certification for their show. Across any industry, insetting is far more tangible, reduces more emissions, and saves money in the long term. But for an industry built on imagination, Hollywood can be surprisingly resistant to change. Shrinking budgets, tight schedules, and get the shot no matter what mindsets leave little room for sustainability. Crew members are often resistant to new technologies, viewing them as experimental or as a threat to their jobs, even if it's been proven to be effective in other industries. Budgets prioritize immediate savings, often at the expense of long-term benefits. Many industry professionals also view sustainability certification as box ticking or as a PR exercise. And without enforcement, it becomes this race to the bottom, so you can get away with the least amount of effort to meet the standards. And weirdly, excessive waste is seen as this badge of honor in the industry. Marketing teams will use the fact that they destroyed 100 cars or filmed across 5 continents as a way to get more people to see the film. It's seen as a sign of greater success and higher quality. So, what can we do to address this? I'm aware that not everybody in the room is wanting to be a filmmaker or a sustainability consultant. So, why does any of this matter to you? What's most exciting to me is that the broader solutions apply to all industries. and sustainability is absolutely essential in all industries. So think about the industry that you are in or are seeking to be in, and how you might start a conversation about sustainability. First, we need to make people aware. Start with the facts and understand the environmental cost of going about business as usual. If people understand the scale of the problem, they're far more likely to care. So, integrate sustainability training into your curriculum. And future decision makers in the room, you are twice as likely to be hired nowadays if you have green skills on your resume. Historically, sustainability has been seen as this buzzkill. It's seen as getting in people's way. It takes effort. But what if it was reframed as efficiency, or as a way for you to appear smarter and future-facing? Hollywood, Bollywood, the entire industry has a key role in raising awareness. The statistics show that audiences want to see more climate stories on screen, and that films incorporating them perform better at the box office. A protagonist being vegan or driving an electric vehicle normalizes these behaviors, subtly influencing audience habits. There are plenty of resources out there to help screenwriters incorporate and embed eco-friendly practices into their scripts. And as screenwriter Dorothy Fortenberry says, if climate isn't in your story, it's science fiction. By not incorporating sustainability into our lives and our stories, we are at risk of falling behind. Next, we need to make it urgent. The pandemic showed us that rapid change is possible. COVID supervisors showed up and were mandatory on set basically overnight because there was this urgent crisis at hand. If the climate crisis was viewed with the same sense of urgency, industries would adapt. We need to move away from delaying and greenwashing. Companies would rather spend millions on campaigns to appear more environmentally conscious than actually take any concrete action, which is like taking a photo and posting it of your reusable water bottle on board your private jet. We need to make people's lives easier. A huge amount of getting this right is behavior change. Showing people how being more sustainable can improve their quality of life is crucial. Like how on set, by switching from hot tungsten bulbs to LED lighting, saves the makeup department having to come in and do touch-ups on sweaty actors' faces in between each take, in addition to LEDs using 90% less electricity. Also, carbon reporting paperwork is seen as such a laborious task that it can actually alienate people from engaging with anything sustainability-related, which clearly isn't the desired outcome. And while there are largely unquantified issues with the climate impact of artificial intelligence, if there was an AI tool that could automatically track all of the carbon and provide bespoke feedback at the end of production, it could free up a huge amount of people's time to actually start taking action as opposed to just administering inaction. We need to make it about money. The film and TV industry is not unique in that it is ultimately a business. Climate cycles are longer than budget cycles, which is why sustainability is often the first thing to go when there are budget cuts. It's seen as being more expensive up front, which is true, but being more sustainable is almost always cheaper in the long term. And the earlier you think about it, the more you save. In Vancouver, they slash permitting costs by 50% if you specifically don't have diesel generators on set. How can we learn from this and attach financial incentives to achieving higher sustainability standards as a way to offset some of this initial investment? Also, switching to a green pension, which specifically doesn't invest in fossil fuels, is 21 times more effective at reducing your own climate impact than going vegetarian, getting an electric car, and giving up flying combined. Is your own money undermining your climate wins elsewhere? And finally, we need to make it clear. Be transparent about your sustainability wins and challenges. And support the experts who are there to help you make a difference. Sustainability professionals are often the lowest paid people on set. They're made to feel like outsiders. They lack the unions and the support networks that other roles have. Without the backing from higher-ups, they can be seen as disposable themselves. Many of the professionals that I interviewed surprised me by saying that they don't see any barriers to implementing these solutions. We know what we have to do. We just have to do it. Change doesn't have to be perfect to be impactful. A diesel generator next to a solar-powered trailer appeared contradictory to me on that set in New York, but it's a start. Every step towards sustainability is a step in the right direction. Sustainability isn't this nice to have or a political matter. It's absolutely essential. The film industry's creativity can lead the way, making carbon reduction look cool and proving that sustainability and storytelling go hand in hand. Change must come from the top. Funding and planning needs to prioritize it and not leave it up to goodwill. This isn't about saving the planet. The planet is going to be fine. It's about saving ourselves. If we want a future worth filming, we need to act now. Movies don't just entertain, they shape culture. How can we shape ours? Let's rewrite the script together. Thank you.